Welcome to Michigan Sports Media Network. Today I have our lead Tigers reporter, Brad Thompson, with us, and our lead Red Wings reporter, James Gullett, as well. So, moving on, we will be talking NFL and Detroit Lions. Obviously, we kind of covered the Lions for the most part on our Monday show, but there's some new stuff that's happened since then, and a lot of NFL movement. Obviously, we will hold off on the NFL movement until later, but just some things for Lions fans to keep in mind here. Okay, the Lions have, I believe, about $59 or $60 million in cap space this year after the cap went up. With Max Crosby's new deal, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, he got 35.5 million per year. I expect Hutch to want 36. That's just what it's going to be. And unfortunately for us, Crosby got his deal done first, so he set the market. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we get this deal done before Myles Garrett's, because if Myles Garrett resets the market again, we might have to end up paying Hutch 40. And I love Hutch, I do, but man, that is a shit ton of money. I don't really care what position you play. But with that being said, we could free up about another 10 if we make these two cuts. And I know a lot of you guys are going to be thinking, oh, Zadarius Smith. No, we're not cutting Zadarius Smith. If you think we should cut Zadarius Smith, I want you to do me a favor. So go on Twitter or X, whatever you call it. Click that little circle with your face on it. Go down to settings and hit remove account, because you shouldn't have a Twitter account if that's what you think. Just saying. He had 9 sacks last year, and yeah, he's old, but he's only $9 million. I mean, we cut him and we only save 5. What the hell are we doing that for? We're gonna go try to spend 5 on a guy just as good, and we're not gonna get it. So Zadarius Smith is not on this list. However, Graham Glasgow, if we cut him post June 1st, you add $5 million. And then Khalif Raymond as well. If we cut him, we save, I think it's 4.8 million. Yeah. And there's around 2 million in dead cap for both of them. Fine by me. You know, that dead cap gets spread over the years. It's not like it's a huge deal, but we could save 10 million right there and go sign a guy that I love, like Pat Jones, pass rusher for Minnesota, who had 7 sacks last year as a rotational guy. Or, use that to sign a corner, which, speaking of corners, looks like Carlton Davis is gone. Based on his tweet, he said something like, basically, I know my worth. I won't make that mistake again. If you want a lockdown corner, come pay me my money. Yikes. Don't love that as a Lions fan. I really don't love it. And it's not because, I don't like the fact that he wants to get paid. I just think that shows the Lions gave him a deal he did not enjoy. And we kind of saw the same from, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson this past offseason, where he mentioned, well, just felt like they didn't really want me and all this and that because they weren't willing to pay me what I thought I was worth. And that's fine. Think you're worth something, please go get that money. I hope Carlton Davis goes to like fucking Jacksonville and gets 25 million a year. Do it. Please. Please give him a 3-year for 75 mil or 80 mil, whatever it is. Enjoy that. I love you, Carlton. We ain't paying you that, buddy. I don't know what to tell you. Like, you're gonna get 18 mil max from us, and that's because we want to win Super Bowls. And unfortunately for Carlton, he's not elite. He's just not. He's a very good corner, but he's not an elite corner. He's good in man. He's good in zone. He's good against the run, but that ain't 25 million a year. That's not, quarterback money. But with that being said, there are some guys that I like, and you can go ahead and check out our article on this on misportsmedia.com that I wrote last month, where I listed probably 8 guys of each position that I thought was a position of need. But I really, really am a fan of Byron Murphy from Minnesota. He had a really good year last year. He's also got that height weight ratio that Brad Holmes just loves for some reason. I don't know what it is with his infatuation with 5'11", 190 corners, but that is like his bread and butter. And then also DJ Reed, who's another guy similar to Byron Murphy. Asante Samuel, who I think is going to be a dark horse candidate in this free agency class as a corner. He's still young. He had some injury issues, of course. But for the most part, he's been a pretty good player. He had a bit of a down year last year, but for 10 million a year or something along those lines, maybe even a little bit less, I think I'd be okay. Um, Charvarius Ward, I think, is a player that is not getting talked about enough in this free agency class. He had a pretty bad year last year. He lost his daughter, guys. Like, it's something, that happened to him that took him totally out of the game. And he even said it halfway through the season. He was like, I don't even know if I love football anymore. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. And after the season ended, he said, I just need to get out of California because that, reminds me of what happened to her. So hopefully, we could give him a 1 year deal, maybe 12 and a half, see what he does. He's 29, so obviously he's a little bit older, but he brings that, number one corner pedigree over from what he did in San Francisco. And I don't expect him to have the same bad season he did last year in terms of play. And then the obvious one, Darius Slay. Okay. Darius Slay, I think, should be brought onto this team, but not as a corner one. I could see him as a corner three. I don't really love him as a corner two either, just because of his age. He was injured a little bit last year. He did play well. Don't get me wrong. He played pretty well last season, but I just don't feel confident bringing him on a team that has. As ironic as what I'm about to say is, that's trying to win a Super Bowl. I just don't feel like he's going to be a starter level corner, at least a high level starter. We're not putting him on Justin Jefferson, which hopefully Terrion Arnold is at that point right now. And maybe if Brad Holmes feels Terrion's a true number one, I could see bringing Slay in as a number two and then bringing another, middling free agent, similar to what we did with Amik Robertson last year. And he's actually played pretty well for us too. So unfortunately, he did suffer that rough injury to his arm in the playoffs, and who knows if he'll be back at 100%. But that's just how it's going to be with this corner issue right now. Carlton Davis is probably the best one available, but there's some other guys we could get. Unfortunately, this draft class is pretty weak at the corner spot, so we're not going to be able to draft a starter. But one name I think a lot of people are not talking about is Ennis Rakestraw. I think that Brad might feel confident in Ennis as a starter next year and add Slay and not add another vet because he goes, worst case scenario, Ennis isn't ready. You got Slay ready to go, and Slay should be a decent guy. But again, it's kind of when you're going to win a Super Bowl, we don't want to have that if this guy's not good, maybe this guy will be. You really don't want that situation. So, and then let's see. Jonah Jackson is heading to Chicago after getting traded for a 6th-round pick. And another big move that they just made is they traded for Joe Thuney. And the reason I bring this up in the Lions portion right now is because I just feel like I would have never traded for that Jonah Jackson contract. The Joe Thuney deal is kind of a steal. I will say I'm a big fan of his, and he's probably got another 2 to 3 years of higher level pay or higher level play. And I I don't love or hate what the Bears are doing right now. I kind of like the idea that they're spending, 40 plus million on 2 guards. I also don't love that they got him for what they got him for, pretty cheap. We'll kind of see how that goes. Ben Johnson obviously is trying to build that O line the correct way, which, more power to him. But more on the free agency side of things for the Lions. There are a few good pass rushers available, but there's 3 I wanted to kind of bring up today to just kind of talk about a little bit. Khalil Mack, Chase Young, and Josh Sweat. I feel Khalil Mack's the obvious one that we want. I think Chase Young is like, he's going to get overpaid because he had a decent season last year as a rotational guy. I think he had like 60 or 40 something pressures, something along those lines. Not many sacks, but he had a pretty okay year. And then Josh Sweat killed it in the Super Bowl, but never really was that elite production guy. He had 8 sacks in the regular season. So I personally don't want to put all our eggs in that basket of free agency. I don't think there's a guy outside of Khalil Mack that I would really just be like, look, how much do you want? Okay, we can make something work. The other 2 I'd lowball them, and if they don't take it, I just move on. But with that being said, James, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I have a lot of mixed emotions based on the Bears' moves today. For the simple fact, between Jonah Jackson and Thuney, they just got two Pro Bowl guards, um, like legitimate offensive linemen, and that was the one uh, catastrophic area of need for the Bears is their O line. They have decent to at least average running backs. They have amazing receivers, and I really like Caleb Williams. Like I hate that he's a Bear, but if you give him time, he has the weapons. I like Cole Kmet a lot. I do feel like they're misusing him in Chicago, but he is a heck of a player. Um, I just, to me, this reiterates what I said on Monday, and I want the Lions to respond to this by going to get like a Miles Garrett. And I mean, I'm fine with Cleo Mack. I know he's a little long the tooth as well, but that's still doing something. I would like to go above that. Obviously, Khalil Mack will come far cheaper than Garrett, the free agency instead of trade. So I got no issues whatsoever with Garrett. Or, I'm sorry, with Khalil Mack. But a move like this, I want to kind of be like, okay, you did this. Now look at us. We did that. And I have an interesting stat here on Tony because I know a lot of people kind of don't know as many, especially interior offensive linemen. Like anyone around the NFL knows Penei Sewell. Like you don't have to be a Lions fan to know Penei Sewell. You don't have to be a 49ers fan to know Trent Williams. But I think the centers and guards around the league don't get as much hype and publicity as maybe they should. But Tony used to play for the New England Patriots, and he was on the Patriots protecting Brady. In his 9 seasons, he has been to 6 Super Bowls between the Patriots and the Chiefs. So he has appeared in a Super Bowl on 66% of his seasons. And that is just completely unheard of. And he has made at least one start at all 5 offensive line positions. So, as much as I can't stand the fact the Bears got arguably a top 5 guard in the entire league for a late round, mid to late round pick, um, it borderline infuriates me. I would love Zeitler to come back, but until it's official, I would have given up that pick to get Tony on the Lions. So, as much as I'm not a fan of the Bears, and I hate the Bears more than Minnesota and Green Bay combined, uh, this is a A+ move by them. And I know Jackson, I would not have touched that contract with Jonah Jackson, but he is a Pro Bowl guard and was a Pro Bowl guard under Ben Johnson. So if you put their right tackle, next to Tony and um, Jonah Jackson, you're looking at potential 3 Pro Bowl linemen for the Bears. And I know we have Hutch, I know we have McNeil and Reader, but it's no longer going to be us bullying them in the trenches. It's going to be a fair, even one-on-one. It's going to be a long game. We're going to Soldier Field, and it's no longer going to be a pushover. So I'm not afraid of the Bears, but it's only the first off, not even halfway through the first offseason of Ben Johnson train, and he's already significantly addressed the biggest areas of need. So kudos to them. That's unfortunate for us, but hopefully we do something to tip the scales in our favor once more.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And we lost you for a minute there. Really, all we talked about was the trades and then Carlton Davis.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot to mention Davis.
That's all right. You can mention him on your next time around.
Yeah.
And we're back.
Yeah.
All right, Brad, I will pass it to you if you have anything to add on the Joe Thuney edition in Chicago.
Yeah, with Thuney, great signing. Great signing. A 1-year deal, though. He's going to be up next year. So if they want to keep it, they're going to have to commit some money to him. Probably, was he 32? probably a couple years, but it's going to be expensive. You're going to end up paying. But the Bears will be formidable. They will be better. Hard not to be. I think they have a better coach. That's not proven yet. Nothing says Ben Johnson is going to come in and be a great coach. He's got a great resume. There is a difference between a great resume and a great coach. Eberflus was a defensive genius. Matt Nagy worked with Andy Reid. There's more to coaching than the X's and O's. We'll see. I'm not bagging on the guy. It was the right hire. But we expected the Bears to upgrade the offensive line. We knew it was coming. It's came. And they will block us better up front, but we do have a guy named Lee McNeil. We do have a guy named Aiden Hutchinson. We do have a guy named Zadarius Smith. Then we have an offensive line. And nobody really stands out, to me at least, in that defensive line other than Montez Sweat. So we've got to understand that it was inevitable that the Bears were going to get better. It just was. They couldn't, it's not that they couldn't be any worse. No, they were going to get better. We know that. We play in the toughest division in the NFL. So we are the Detroit Lions. We are 15-2. It's not really, in my opinion, not worried about what somebody else is going to do. It's what we need to do. And injuries hurt us. I don't want to use that as an excuse. It was working all the way up till the end of the year. And I really don't think that it was the injuries that cost us against Washington. Quite frankly, why are you going empty when you're up 17-3 with 3rd and short? Who called that? Just saying. You don't go empty there. He gets too cute. And who's to say all those trick plays were his? I could have sworn Dan Campbell's got a set of balls. So I got to believe Campbell was in on those plays. I'm just saying, it's what we're going to do. All right, Bears, hey, kudos. But hopefully now that Caleb Williams won't hold on to the ball for more than 9 seconds. Literally more than 9 seconds. So this falls on him a little bit too. So let's make sure he's not getting that happy feet the first time the rush comes. So, but no, that's tremendous. Tremendous signing on Thuney, tremendous signing on Jackson. But again, we knew it was coming. I'd like to see what they're going to do on that defensive line. And I'd quite frankly like to see what they're going to do at linebacker. I don't think that defense is formidable. I think it's a run-of-the-mill defense. So, I mean, I don't want to, not trying to piss on the Thuney signing, but it's the Bears and it's the Vikings and it's the Packers. And we see them every year. And as long as we go 6-0 against them last year?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, 5-0, 5-1, 4-2 would be good. I prefer 6-0 because the schedule is going to be a bitch. So, but yeah, Bears are going to do what they do. They've got a lot of money. So we knew it was coming. Now we just got to do what we do.
Yeah, and that's very true. Speaking to your point of, Montez Sweat being the best player on their defensive line, Zadarius Smith had more sacks than him last year. Just saying. So I'll pass it back to James on that note if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on the Carlton Davis thing. As you said, he's not a player that I would want to break the bank on and just give him whatever he wants. However, I don't want to skimp on him either. And uh, obviously, I don't know what the actual offer was, but I agree with what he posted on Twitter. Seems to be displeased with the offer by more than just a little bit. And he was pivotal for this team. He is in my opinion, number one corner. I think Terrion is better suited for the number two. I know Raystraw was making waves in camp before he got hurt, but that's just camp, and he got hurt, so let's see how he bounces back. But we did spend a first and second round pick at the corner position, so I know we already have significant resources put into that. So I don't know what he's asking for, and I really wish I do, and I wish I knew the Lions offer. As you stated, there's some decent corners available in free agency. I don't think we're going to be completely lost, but I would say at least unless someone else gets a surprising cut or a June 1st cut or something, or there's a surprising trade, I do think Carlton Davis is the number one corner in free agency. So I would really like to bring him back, but as we stated on Monday, I'm like Also potentially talking about JMO extensions and a couple other guys in Hutch, like you said, a couple other guys in line. And I'm not going to risk those guys for Davis, but I would not want to kick Davis out. I'm not saying like we don't want you because I would love to have him back.
Yeah, and I can completely agree with that point. Like I said, I would love to have him back, but we ain't paying him 25 million a year. You know what I mean? Like we got to
Oh,
be
absolutely.
realistic here with this one. So Brad, you got anything to add?
Yeah, I had a little technical difficulty there. I got a feeling, just me, that they probably offered him 3 years at 18 million. I don't think they went as high as 20, and you'd have to be dumb to give this guy 25 million. Just my opinion. He doesn't move the needle for me. Is he the best corner out there? Maybe, perhaps, but he missed 4 games. My question is we gave up a third for him. Why didn't we make sure we were signing him then? Because the third round pick is pretty damn valuable for a guy on a 1 year. Now look where we're at right now. Okay. Um, I don't think I would have even made the trade without making sure we got him extended. So, but hey, that's just me. I think there's options out there. I love Byron Murphy. I love Pat Jones. I love Shaver. I love everyone that you guys brought up. I really do. But Carlton Davis, you can go to the Jacksonville Jaguars and we'll never hear from you again. You'll have a hell of a mansion out there in North Florida, and you'll have your yachts and all that, and you'll be big pimping, brother. But you ain't gonna have no ring. So you go have fun with the teams that have that cap. You go play for the Patriots. You go play for Jacksonville, and we'll say we knew you win because we will never hear from you again because you will not be on a good football clubs or football team. So, and then what I wanted to say too when I skipped out is, we got to remember Zadarius Smith came over here halfway through the year. All right, so it wasn't like he spent a whole training camp with us. All right, now you're going to get Z Dog for maybe 1 more year, so take on the contract, get him in a training camp, get him with Hutch, and boom, all of a sudden, wow, he's got 12, 13 sacks. Definitely need to upgrade the position, though, in the draft. Definitely need to. Or upgrade it, in free agency as well. Khalil Mack, I'll keep pounding the table for him. Um, you go Mack and Smith, or you go Mack and Smith with a young pup in the third round there all of a sudden, and I'm feeling pretty good about that. I'm feeling real good about that. Yep. So yeah, gives Darius Smith an off season for crying out loud, and let's see what he can do. Um, this isn't going to be popular. It's not going to be popular at all. But guys, you can't go spending $40 million on any player outside of a franchise quarterback. You just can't. You're going to be lopsided, and hopefully the cap goes up and it goes up and up. But hey, you better sign Hutch tomorrow, all right? Because when I saw Crosby's numbers, I was like, yikes, 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 yikes. I mean, I had to do a triple take, not a double, a triple, and I was going, this is not good. This is so fucking not good. So I'm not paying Hutchinson $40 million a year. I'm not paying anybody $40 million a year. All right. No, I can't, guys. It's again, man. Again, I want to be in this for the long haul. I don't want a window to close. I want kicks of the can every year, and $40 million wrapped up in one player. Good God, good God. So I mean, you guys can both kick me in the nuts. I get it. I get it. I know he's a Michigan boy. I know he's a divine child boy. I love it. My daughter's got his jersey. My mom calls me every day, every Sunday. Do you see Hush? You see Hush? She called me crying when he got hurt. I get it. But not at 40 million, fellas. Not at 40 million.
Yeah, and I can kind of understand that. But to kind of like play devil's advocate on those points, I guess. The first thing is Carlton Davis, yes, we traded a third round pick for him. But if he gets 20 million and we don't sign a guy of that much money, we get a third back. So just keep that into account there. Because Brad Holmes might have been thinking that when he made that deal. If we're not going to pay him, we get a comp pick back. Really, we move down like 20 picks to get Carlton Davis, which isn't that bad in hindsight. And then number two, I definitely agree with your Zadarius Smith point. And another thing that I would add on to that is he had 4.5, 5 sacks with us without Hutchinson and without McNeil for 3, 4 games. So if he can do that as the number one guy, like you said, 13 sacks really isn't that crazy, right? And that's Josh Sweat's best season as a NFL player. So just put that into perspective. Would you rather pay Josh Sweat 18 million or Zadarius Smith 9 for the same production? Although it's only for one season, some other factors into that. And then the other thing is on the Hutch front, again, to play devil's advocate, I disagree only because that number in 2 years is going to look way better. I think if we give him 40 million, I think it looks bad today. It might even look bad next year, but then that third season, when we're talking about a 5-6 year deal, we're going to be talking about, call me crazy. I think by 2030, we're going to see $100 million a year contract in the NFL. I genuinely do.
Yep.
And I think it'll be a Pat Mahomes or a Lamar Jackson, a quarterback. Maybe Jaden Daniels. I could see. In 5 years if he's on his going into his third contract. But those are just some things to kind of take into account with that because of the fact that we do know the cap's going to keep rising, and we know that all these things are going to happen. But with that said, if the cap doesn't rise as much as projected, or if something weird happens, then you're talking about a whole different scenario there with that Hutch deal. So I totally get where you're coming from, because 40 million that's buku bucks, bro. Like, that's crazy for a non-quarterback. But think about 5 years ago. 25 million for a non-quarterback. People were like, what is going on? So I think if just we take into account the future money that could be coming in, I think it'll be okay. But with that being said, we will pivot to our final topic of the day, NFL news in general. So we had a decent amount of NFL news happen. James, did you have a point?
Yeah, sorry. I just something I feel like got lost in translation a little bit that both of you touched on in terms of the Davis acquisition itself. Um, we got a fourth and a fifth back in that trade as well. Not only did we give up our third, but when we traded for him, he had 2 years on his contract. He took that down to one and restructured his contract for us to have some more cap space for the Panay Sewell deal. And now we are, not we, but now Brad Holmes, and don't get me wrong, I love Brad Holmes. Um, I just hope we didn't offer him, because I don't know what the offer too little, because he has helped us out in the past, and he was supposed to have this upcoming year on his contract originally when we did trade for him.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up, because also, to play devil's advocate,
Yeah.
think about it like this, right? I agree with you that I totally forgot about the fourth and the fifth round pick, honestly. But I also forgot about the restructure thing. And I would agree that they should do him a solid because of the restructure. But think about it this way. He had one more year for 16 million, right? So if we're offering him 18, is that really disrespectful if he was going to take 16 to begin with? You know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes it's like, I kind of get where he's coming from because he played well and the cap is what it is and blah, 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 blah. But if we're using that point, couldn't we kind of turn that on its head and say, well, he's getting extra money at the end of the day then? But again, it's a 3 year deal instead of a one, and other things go into account with that. But anything else by either of you guys?
Well, speaking to that point, that's cool, and I get it, and it's about making your money. Believe me, I don't know, but believe me, I get it. But let me say this: is Kansas City going to offer him 3 at 25? Is Buffalo? You see where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah.
So, do you want to be in? Do you want? He hasn't got. He has a ring with Tampa, right? Correct. Okay, he's got a ring with Tampa.
Yes.
That's right. Okay, fair enough. If one ring is good enough for him, and I'm not saying it's not, okay, then go get yours. Again, you're not going to get it from a contender, though. So if you're ready to get paid, God bless you. Can't keep a guy from his money. Never will. But if you want to win another Super Bowl, you're not going to do it in the places you're going to end up. So.
Yeah, and that's another good point on that front. But to pivot now to the NFL as a whole, just to kind of go through this kind of quickly, Davante Adams was cut. Okay. It sounds like he is probably going to a West Coast team, probably the Chargers or even the Rams. I've heard some inklings that he could go to the Rams to kind of take that Cooper Cup spot, and he'll obviously take a lot less money than what Cup is getting paid, or else that would make no sense. I've also heard some AJ Brown rumors of him being traded. I don't think they're that substantial. He seems like this happens every year, but I don't see a team who just gave their running back an extra 10 million for funsies and then gave their linebacker a new deal, just trading their best receiver because of money. Like, I just don't get that. The only thing I could understand is because AJ Brown has had some off-field stuff. He's had some character concerns throughout the process. So I could see them thinking, we'll trade AJ, we'll sign another receiver like a Chris Godwin or something like that to be our, not too much of a talent drop off. Maybe. I don't see it happening though. But speaking of Chris Godwin, he's probably the best receiver available right now, and he is being highly sought after. It does sound like though he will end up in Tampa Bay after all is said and done. However, I don't think it's that crazy if he leaves for New England or Carolina, or let's see, the Chargers even. I could see him kind of going to any of those wide receiver needy teams. And then, like I mentioned before, Saquon got a new deal where he is making $20 million a season, which is the first running back contract ever to make over $20 million a year. And that kind of goes into our last point of, the cap keeps going up, man. It's crazy to see the numbers that these guys are getting. But another guy who will probably make a little bit over $20 million a year, this might surprise you, Sam Darnold. From everything I've heard, the Vikings are not willing to pay over $25 million a year. They offered a 1-year deal around that $20 to $25 million range. Sam obviously didn't accept it because he wants to test his market. But that's where the Vikings are at. Sounds like they're not going to budge. They are using JJ McCarthy as leverage, which they should, because they go, well, we're not going to overpay for you. If you don't want to stay, we'll go sign, a middling starter quarterback like a Russell Wilson or something like we mentioned last podcast, something along those lines, and kind of go from there and save us some money. So sounds like if most likely Sam Darnold will not be returning to Minnesota. With that being said, Pittsburgh probably is the best, spot for him, I think. Obviously I would have said the Rams before that, but I think Pittsburgh right now, just because I think he fits there pretty well, and I think they would be willing to pay a little bit more right now because of the spot that they're in. Another team that can make sense, of course, is Tennessee or the Jets, or really both New York teams. But I think all three of those are a little bit less going to be less aggressive after that position this year because they're so high in the draft. So, we'll see how that ends up. But right now, it does not sound like Sam Darnold is that keen to return to Minnesota. And then we touched on the Joe Thuney to Chicago trade. Speaking of trades, DK Metcalf, he requested a trade, which is pretty big right now for this NFL. He's a legit number one wide receiver. I don't understand people on Twitter are acting like he's some bum. The dude is like, okay, he's not Calvin Johnson, right? But if you
No.
took just Calvin Johnson's height, weight, speed, and that's who DK Metcalf is. I mean, he has all of
Yeah.
those tools. You know what I mean? So, and he's what, 26, 27, and he's only got 1 year on his deal, so whoever trades for him is going to need to sign him to a new deal. But again, we got a pretty deep wide receiver class in terms of free agency and trading this year. At least for, those wide receiver 1 or 2, there's a little bit more on the bone there, I think, than normal. So we could see, Metcalf go to the Chargers, the Patriots, the Rams, the Panthers, the Steelers, the Packers have been another team linked to him. And the Seahawks just cut Tyler Lockett, so they're really desperately in need of wide receivers. And I could see Green Bay maybe trading Jair Alexander, Christian Watson, and a pick for DK, and then both teams kind of make out on that. But remember, whoever trades for him is going to have to sign a new deal, and that's going to be $25 million probably per year minimum, because right now he's making 18, and that was a deal he signed I think 3 years ago. And then our last trade rumors that we have right now is there are some real rumors of Brandon Aiyuk getting traded. I don't know how substantial they are, though. Again, they just traded Debo. I thought they would only trade one or the other. It seemed like to me. And the rumors are that Aiyuk could be traded to New England for a third rounder. I don't know about that. I feel like he's young. He's not super expensive. I don't really see why the Niners would do that trade right now. And if they were, they should have done it 5 days ago instead of trading Debo. That's just my opinion. But I still think they did the right decision by trading Debo because, you get a little bit more money off the books, and that was kind of the whole idea. And then to wrap this report up, Jonathan Allen from the Washington Commanders is a cut candidate because they're having some trouble finding him a trade, which makes sense. If you're Jonathan Allen, right, let's say there's 3 teams you really want to go to, you've let those teams know. There's no need for them to really trade anything for you because you're on a 1-year, $16 million deal, and they probably could get you for cheaper without having to give up capital. It just they're then risking you basically, or risking Jonathan Allen, because they're saying we feel we can get him over those other 2 guys. So maybe somebody floats a 7th and gets it done, but that's kind of what it seems like it's going to be right now. And then last but not least, which we already touched on this, Max Crosby, the premier pass rusher from the Raiders, just got an absolute blockbuster of a deal. $35.5 million per year, resets the market for everybody, not just pass rushers, if you ask me. That's an insane amount of money. And the Lions, got to stop dragging our toes when it comes to this Aiden Hutchinson deal, because that's just going to keep going up and keep going up, especially if Myles Garrett gets traded. But with that being said, I will pass this over to Brad, and the floor is yours.
All right. Well, there's a lot to unpack there. Just rifling through, a couple things stand out to me. Could be wrong. Would have to check the cap, but DJ Metcalf goes to Buffalo. He's the best wide receiver in the NFL. I'm not sure that Buffalo has the cap. I was going to say Baltimore, and he probably would be as well. I don't think Baltimore has the means to do it. Chris Godwin, I'd like to fit in Seattle if he doesn't go to Tampa. Seattle's going to need receivers, but then again, while DK wants out, Locke is long of the 2, so possibly there. I like Sam Darnold to the Giants, personally. I think that's a fit there. Let's go back to Minnesota. You got JJ there, obviously. If they're not ready to throw him into the deep end of the pool, they did pick up Daniel Jones. Now, I'm not mistaken. Is he still on the roster? Oh.
I believe he signed a 1-year contract. Oh,
Okay. So if Jones is on that roster, what can Kevin McConnell do with him? Look what he did with Darnold. Imagine what he could do with Daniel Jones. I'm just saying that I think we kind of gloss over that a little bit. I really do. So that could be. I mean, who knows? It might just be me just just blowing air here, but yeah, with anything else, Crosby. I think we talked about that, and I think that's pretty much. Cooper Kupp, I saw him tagged to somebody today too. I'm not sure, but San Francisco, if they want to start selling off their pieces, I mean, Brock Purdy. I'm not sure Brock Purdy can do it all by himself. I'll leave it at that. So if you want to throw to George Kittle 40 times a game, go for it. But that's pretty much all I got on that.
All right. Thanks for the information on that, Brad. I will pass it over to you, James. Floor's yours.
I got a few things to unwrap with that, but I was checking some notes here as you were talking. The Buffalo Bills, I absolutely love that fit. Josh Allen's arm with DK's size, speed, athleticism, all that would be fun to watch, and I would like watching that even not even as a Buffalo fan. However, they only have under 10 million in cap space, so I highly doubt, unless they make a couple moves, but they just don't have the room. I know the other team you mentioned was the Ravens. They have only 18 million in cap space, and I know they have a couple guys of their own they want to bring back, so it's going to be less than that for him. So unless they do something to adjust, because I have a strong hunch DK's next contract he's going to be. I have NFL wide receiver contracts in front of me right now, and judging by the market and whatnot, he's probably going to get 29 to 30 million a year, I think, on the market. So I know kind of encompassing everything we've talked about cap space wise between not wanting to pay or potentially not wanting to pay Hutchinson 40 million a year, um, between Max Crosby getting his 35 million a year, 35.5 million a year. Um, it reminds me of when we signed St. Brown. Like, I absolutely love St. Brown. He encompasses everything you want as a teammate, as a person, as a player. He's got his teammates' backs. He does so much charity work. He blocks and he does all the little things you need. But I was kind of against paying a receiver 30 million a year for kind of the same reasons. Like, there's five, potentially six of them per team. You can't, the cap keeps going up, yeah, but so do all these quarterback contracts and everyone else. But we made last offseason Amon-Ra St. Brown the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. And we are less than a calendar year later, and he is right now the fourth highest paid receiver because three people already passed him. And I know Brad was saying no one besides the quarterback's worth 40 million a year, but I absolutely agree with Jace that now Justin Jefferson's the highest paid wide receiver at 35 a year. So Crosby did 35 and a half to leapfrog him for the highest non-quarterback. But we gave St. Brown 30 million a year, and the same offseason it already jumped up to 35. So I can absolutely see a quarterback within the next 6, 7 years getting 100 per year as long as things keep rolling the way they are. And I think that's outrageous, but that's just the trend it's going in. So yeah, I would like to assign Hutch yesterday, and that way when other pass rushers like Garrett and all these other guys, then Hutch is the new benchmark, so then Garrett will pass him. And as Jay said earlier, maybe 2 or 3 years down the road, it looks like a steal as long as we get him for enough years. I know it's cringeworthy and you grit your teeth and you're like, I don't know, but the players, someone's paying them that money. So I want it to be us. And then I know you touched up on Brendan Aiyuk, and I just wanted to say, since I have the things in front of me, Aiyuk just signed his extension last offseason as well. He's 27, and he's also making 30 million a year. He is the sixth highest paid receiver in the NFL. So I don't think he's a good player. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think he's the sixth best player in the league or receiver in the league. Um, AJ Brown, also, what you talked about with potential trade rumors, he's the third highest paid receiver in the league at 32 million a year. So there's multiple expensive receivers. I'll just put in air quotes on the market because I don't think AJ Brown's going anywhere. He just signed his extension. He's making more than St. Brown. But I do wonder, because I'm not the strongest in cap space knowledge, I do wonder how the Eagles make it work with paying AJ Brown 32 a year. They just gave Saquon the first ever running back over 20 million a year. And Davante Smith is the 11th highest paid receiver at 25 million a year. So the Philly has two receivers both making over 25 a year, and now a running back making over 20 a year. So eventually, especially with Jalen Carter eventually going to need an extension, they just re-signed Brown, their linebacker, today to a big extension. I want to know how they get this money and how we can apply it to ourselves, or the Lions, I should say. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's some really good information. Oh, sorry, did I cut you off?
no, you're good.
Okay. So yeah, that's really good information, and a couple things with what you said. The Bills actually could make it work. I just was looking over their over the cap. If they cut guys post June 1, they can cut Von Miller and free up 18 million right there. They can cut Daquan Jones and free up 5.5. They can cut Connor McGovern and free up 7. They can cut AJ Epinesa and free up 6.5. David Edwards free up 4. So obviously some of those guys are, more starter level players for them, so they won't cut them. But within 4 or 5 players, they're making, another 30 million. So if they wanted to make that happen, they could do it. And they could even, I don't know, maybe trade some players or whatever to try to keep their draft picks. And then another thing I wanted to mention was we do not talk about Penei Sewell enough. Okay.
Yep.
Penei Sewell took a discount. I don't know if anybody knew this or not. He took a hometown discount for the Lions. He gets paid less than Amon-Ra St. Brown, and they got paid at the same time. He is the third highest paid right tackle, I think, right now in the NFL. And when he got his deal, he was second by like $1.5 million behind I'm blanking on his name, but the Buccaneers tackle, Trent
Or
Wirfs.
yep.
He like Sewell took a legit hometown discount. Now it might have been 2 or 3 million a year, but he did it, and I just think he doesn't get enough, credit in my opinion for that. Now the other thing I was going to talk about is the cap space thing because I hear this question a lot, and it's something I recently have been able to completely understand. Well, not completely. There's still some stuff I don't really understand about the cap, but in layman's terms, this which is the way I understand it. So, in layman's terms, the cap is like how much your roster gets paid every year, obviously. But you can do stuff with bonuses outside of the cap. Like you see it all the time, a player, let's just say, for instance, they got $100 million, right? But 30 million of it was in a bonus. So their cap hit, let's say it's a, 4-year deal. So it's normally 25 million. Let's say, their cap hit is, 19 or 18 because of those bonuses. That's generally how they make it work, like with the Saints, how they've been kind of gaming the cap recently, or like the Eagles. It's all about structuring. And this is kind of something I talked about, recently on Twitter. It's a lot of it is cash poor owners and cash rich owners, right? So you have owners like, for instance, the Bengals, who are more of a cash poor owner, and then you have owners like the Cowboys, who are a cash rich owner. The Cowboys, what they can do is they can say, hey, like they did the other day, CeeDee Lamb, you're making 35 million or whatever, 32 million this year. How about we give you 20 of that up front? Sound good? And then he goes, sure. And then they go, cool, your cap hit's $12 million now. You see what I'm saying? So it's the Eagles kind of did that when they gave out their deals, like with Saquon and with the linebacker, and then back when they did the deal with Davante and the deal with AJ, they purposely structured that way because their owner has some money he can dole out, and he knew that was going to be how. Okay, it's kind of like baseball in a way because baseball doesn't have a cap, right? Or if it does, it's kind of up in the air or how to. Yeah,
It's
it
not a
doesn't.
hard cap.
So it's kind of like baseball in that way of like the best richest owners could have the best teams if they really wanted to. A lot of these guys are just stingy and they don't want to get pony up the big money, so they just kind of do what they need to do. But with that being said, Brad, do you have anything to add before we get out of here?
Yeah, I just these numbers, and I'm not trying to get off my lawn guy, but these numbers, good God, man, good God,
Yeah.
I just, oh wow. You guys ever have kids, man? Put them on the gridiron right away and start filling them full of PEDs. Jesus. Maybe with Penei Sewell is if you're asking about the best here, Penei Sewell is the best football player in the NFL. All right. I mean, is he scoring? Well, he can pass too, but is he scoring touchdowns? Is he doing that? No. But football player, he's the best football player in the NFL. And we've got him on a steal. And, back to Hutch with the bonuses and things like that. Like I said, Michigan guy, Divine Child guy, Lions fan. If we can hook him up with a bonus, I think maybe he would take one or two. Now, I can't speak for him. It's the guy's paycheck. All right. But maybe $2-3 million less. Maybe not. Probably not. But it's still there. It definitely would help. But I liked what you talked about with the bonuses. But man, yeah, I just can't with this salary cap stuff. I'm just shaking my damn head, man. It's just I don't know. But yeah, Penei Sewell. Yeah, there's going to be a statue erected after him very soon the day he retires from here.
Yeah, and I agree with all of that. Well, that'll wrap up the show this time. We appreciate you guys for watching. James and Brad, I appreciate you guys for being here. You know what to do. Follow us on Twitter. I am at MI Sports Media. James, what's your handle?
Gullet_James.
And Brad?
BT8 ball.
Beautiful. Follow me at Jace O Sweet, and we will see you on the next one. See ya.